What is a warrior? A warrior is defined in many ways. A fighter, a leader, a hero. Someone who has courage, strength, power, and resilience to whatever faces them. Whether a player, coach, manager, broadcaster, custodian, or administrator, anyone involved with sports is needed to achieve the highest level of excellence. It takes a warrior to achieve excellence, but it takes a village of warriors to achieve greatness. This is the Warriors Beyond the Scoreboard podcast.
Good morning once again to Warriors Beyond the Scoreboard. You guessed it, it's Brent Doty, the athletic director. I've taken over the studio once again, and this time I am joined by our executive directors, Jeremy Van Loo and Phil Huffman. How you doing, gentlemen?
Great. How about you?
Really good.
Doing well, thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
I must warn you, I'm battling this. I had the flu and this residual cough that the doctor tells me could be here for 6 months, it seems, and I'm kidding there a little bit. So if I cough, I apologize.
We won't hold it against you.
I'll try to warn you so you can take your headphones off. But,
I appreciate it.
yeah.
Well, let's get started kind of like we always do. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, like where you guys are from, originated, if you're from the Wawasee area or outside. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your family and stuff like that.
I'll go first. Okay. My name's Jeremy Van Loo. Born and raised here in good old Syracuse, Indiana. Graduated from Wawasee High School back in 1990. And I can guarantee you that if this program would have been around back in the 80s when I was here, there's no doubt I would have been a part of that. Because, growing up, my dad listened to all sorts of radio. He was a big fan of radio in general. And Wolfman Jack, he would make us listen to good old Wolfman Jack. Do you even know, Brent?
That name does sound familiar,
Okay,
actually. I don't know how, but
I got to educate him.
Yeah.
But we would, as kids, it was a big treat to go to McDonald's in Goshen because you couldn't do that here in Syracuse.
Yeah.
And on a Saturday night, old Wolfman Jack would be on the radio in the station wagon that my parents had because they had 22,000 kids. Okay, 5. But anyways, it was a big deal, and I just love this guy. I'm like, man, I want to be on the radio someday.
Yeah.
And I graduated in 1990, and I decided to take a gap year because my dad had to have open heart surgery.
Got you.
Right after I graduated, and at the time we owned Radio Shack here in town, the Video Connection video rental store, and an electronic repair store. So my dad's down for the count. Mom's got 4 other children at home and 3 businesses to run.
Oh, my.
Now, I've grown up in the family business my whole life. I started working when I was 10, and so I decided I had to help Mom. So I helped run the business, and then that next year I enrolled at Purdue IU, what was then Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne.
Mm-hmm. My alma mater, by the way. I
it?
still call it IPFW, even though it's not technically anymore.
But I enrolled in communications class there because I wanted to be on the radio. And then Bill Dixon, which I think when you were interviewing Garrett the other day, he knows a little something about Bill.
He did mention him.
In fact, we have fun in the classroom. He tells me stories. Bill will tell him stories about when I worked for Bill Dixon, and it's kind of fun. And I tell him stories about Bill, and anyways. But Bill Dixon came to my dad's store at that time, and this was after he was back, and I was going to school and trying to sell advertising when he went on the air with what was then Wawasee 103. Yeah, I'm losing my voice too. And so I'm like, listening to this conversation, I'm like, hey, Bill. And I've known the Dixons for many years. Had Mary Lou as a teacher, all that fun stuff. Anyways, I said, hey, I'm going to school for this. Is there any opportunity for me to come out and play at your radio station? He said, I'd love to have you. I'll teach you everything you need to know. I said, what's that pay? He says, nothing. You're gonna earn by learning. I like that. That's what school's all about.
True teacher
right?
in him, right?
Yeah. So anyways, I was able to go out there, and then real quickly I was able to get a Saturday evening show.
Very cool.
He liked what I was doing, and from that moment on, he really liked my performance and my skill set. I already knew the electronic side of things, and this is long before computer automation and all that stuff. So he offered me a full-time job. I said, hey, I'm going to school. He's like, well, you could do both. I'm like, you know what? I want to be a radio DJ.
Yeah.
And this is in my hometown. I'm just going to go ahead and drop out of school and do this.
I'm sure your parents were thrilled.
They literally supported me, but there was kind of a caveat to that. It was, well, you're going to go work for Bill, but when you get done, we need you to come work in the store in the afternoon.
Yeah, of course.
So I did do that. And I was able to learn from Bill, and I'll say this to the day I die. Between Bill Dixon and Brian Walsh, two of my mentors, they taught me all about the radio business. So I was involved in sales and promotions, on air, all that stuff, and it was a great opportunity. I eventually left and continued my radio broadcasting career part-time with Brian Walsh, Flying Brian, and some stints with WRSW back in the day.
Yeah.
But my family business needed me. And so we were branching out, adding another store in Napanee in 2001, eventually another one in Goshen. And so I stuck with that. And then all of a sudden, my uncle, who was the director of technology here at Wawasee High School at the time, contacted me and he says, hey, we're going to start a radio station at Wawasee High School, and we know you got some crony brothers, broadcast brothers that you could get together and help us out. Would you be interested? Yeah. So we started that whole thing.
Yeah.
And one day I got the question, would you be interested in teaching this program? I said, I dropped out of college. I don't have a college degree. He's like, guess what? The state of Indiana has a special license called a workplace specialist license. Those people who have worked in industry for a minimum 5 years, who know that industry, can get a license to teach as long as they go to Ball State for a year and take this course and pass it and all that stuff. So it was a tough one to go talk to my parents about, because the plan originally was that my wife and I, Shauna and I, were going to take over the family business.
Yeah.
But 2008 hit, and there's a lot of things that happened then, and Radio Shack eventually went out of business. And so I took the job. And there was others that Phil was part of that interview process, but I took the job. And back in 2014, I started in this whole gig, and it was really cool because when I started, my son was still at the middle school, but then when he came to the high school, to have your own son here,
absolutely,
and I made him do stuff for me in here, and he was he is a very talented and young man, and it was really cool. So
very cool. Yeah, like a long lineage and past history within the area and then the school too. Like that's cool that it's kind of come full circle.
I'm sure you can agree with this statement too. It was weird coming back to your alma mater and walking down the halls every day in a building that has actually changed since when you were in high school.
Absolutely.
At first it was weird, but then it was like, this is cool.
Yeah, it feels like home. It's always home, and it's easy to come back to. Yeah, so you fit into that groove, even though it maybe feels a little strange or a little weird right away. But yeah, that's definitely that. I can relate to that 100%. So that's cool that it's kind of come full circle and stuff. What about you, Mr. Huffman? How did you come to be at Wawasee? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been started out in technology over the years. Went to college for electronics and computer technology down at Vincennes, got a 2-year degree. Came back, decided in 2006, somewhere around in there, I was going to go to college, go back and get my bachelor's degree. Nice. Ended up getting a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts. So I double majored, did that at Indiana Tech, and got that done in 2016. Graduated, back up a little bit here. I graduated from Triton in 87.
So I will say you're the old man.
I think I'm the old man here.
I was born before both of you were in high school or in school or in graduating. So like I get some of those that era a little bit, the late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, I'm decently up on it. So
by the way, I had hair back in those days too. So.
You got pictures to prove it.
Out there in the classroom, I do. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But
a mullet, we had to have mullets back in those days.
I had one after I graduated.
Yeah.
So after 87, went on to college, got my degree, went into technology, worked in at Computer Land in Warsaw for a few years, and then eventually went to work for down in Huntington, American Express, Tax and Business Services as a technology person for them. And then was director of technology, the second director of technology for Huntington Community Schools.
Yeah.
Was there for several years, then went up to Chesterton, was a coordinator for their high school. They just built the new Chesterton High School, so I had the privilege of putting all the technology into that building.
A tall task, I'm sure.
They had, but at the same time is when they started getting a money crunch. So the budget I originally started out with was like $250 million down to 90,000.
Oh my!
So it got cut big time.
Significant.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! Oh my!
But they had a lot of the stuff in there, and then we were just trying to piece together other things,
Yeah.
and then each year's budget would get clipped a little more and a little more, and so it eventually left there and came here in 2010.
Yeah.
And that's when I started. I was kind of started in as the entry tech.
Yeah.
But then when they realized the degrees I had and what I was doing, they're like, we want you full-time as a regular employee. So that's
Makes
how that
sense.
came about.
Cool.
And then I also started at that time, took over the TV program
Okay.
here at the high school. So I started doing the morning announcements, daily announcements that they used to do. I took that over. Per an incident prior to me coming on board, we couldn't do live announcements.
Yeah. High schoolers in front of the camera,
Yes.
like that could lead to some problems every
Yes.
once in a while.
It did.
You got to be very trusting of them.
Yes. We did have a recorded incident that nobody really knew about that we kind of found out after the fact.
Oh wow.
We won't go into that
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But we had to pre-screen what we were going to put on after that. But everything worked out pretty good. Once we found out that we did want to do a radio station here through our superintendent at the time, Tom Eddington,
Yeah.
we started looking at Jeremy's uncle and I started looking into things, and we found that we had an online software, SAM broadcaster, or it's
Sam Broadcaster.
yeah.
Yep.
So we set that up here, and we had an online presence for about 2 years before we actually started working on getting the actual radio station set up, and then improving our TV program.
Yeah, that's cool to hear about. Like to hear the history kind of behind it is always really unique. Like we know how it exists now, and recently in recent years we're broadcasting games and bringing you live music and the different events and like fundraisers and stuff we do. But to hear kind of the history of it and how it kind of built up to what it is now is really, really interesting, because it's just not manifested overnight, and it's not a 1-year project or even a 2-year project. It takes so much time to develop and get to kind of the point we're at. So elaborate a little more on that, on the history of it and behind it. Like both of you are significantly in with technology and kind of leading to the radio broadcast, whether it's through Radio Shack or being the director or whatever. So like talk to more about the history a little bit about how we got to where we are today.
To start off with, before we had the TV or the radio program, we had the TV. So we started out there. We didn't really have a class for it, so we were kind of competing again with a lot of our students that wanted to be in the program were in band. And at that time, band was first and second period.
Got you.
So the people that wanted to be in the program couldn't be in the program. So we kind of said, okay, you come in before school and we'll record this stuff, and then I'll edit it up and we'll have it ready to go by lunch.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we did. We did that. They also had, at the time, they wanted to have somebody who'd kind of done some of this in the past, so they called Bill Dixon in. He kind of came in. He would help prep things to go. I would edit everything, and then, he would take off. I'd finish everything and get everything laid out, ready to go, and then we'd run it.
Yeah.
So we did that for like a year and a half, and then I kind of took over things and kind of kept that going with a class at the time. We had some students. We had them like every period, had students coming in. We had like 5 here, 3 here, and it just kind of started growing.
Yeah.
But then I saw that we really didn't have any way of, nobody was really doing anything my very first year here of the graduation. So I was like, hey, I want to be able to record the graduation and then either put it out on DVD or upload it to a YouTube channel or something. So we ordered some cables that were 250 feet long or 300 feet long, and we ran the cables down the hallway from the studio to the east and west end of the gym, hooked up the sound system, and 3 cameras.
Yeah.
One on the floor, 2 up on top, so you could see down at the students and you could zoom in on who was talking at the podium, and then you had the sound system, and we pumped all that back.
Interesting.
And then we recorded it, but we weren't doing live at that time.
Got you.
And that was on our old Globecaster system. That's different than the TriCaster system,
Yes.
which at the time we thought about upgrading to that, but we just kind of kept getting extra equipment for the Globecaster at that time.
Got you.
And just kind of build that a little more and a little more. And then eventually it broke down and we had to do something. And at that time we were in the middle of a building project for getting the radio studio, and we decided, okay, we're going to get a new TriCaster. We had, I think we had a lightning strike at one point, and we lost our audio connection, so we had to get a mixer that we could bring in the audio. Okay. And we also, during that project, wired up the gym with regular cabling back to the studio.
Okay.
Later on, down the road, after we got that all set up, we had cameras down at the gym. We had students down there, and we were trying to run. This is, did we have the radio? We didn't. Yeah, we had the radio station at that time. We were running walkie-talkies, and sometimes they could hear us or not hear us. And you'd have a kid on a camera watching the game, but not through the camera.
Yeah.
So the camera would be pointing at one end of the gym and the game's at the other end, and I'd have to get on the radio, hey, move the camera.
That's good.
So now we've upgraded to fiber in the gym. We've got 6 cameras down there, one over center, one on each side, one that does each of the baskets so for 3 throws, and then we have one for our talent.
Yep.
And that all comes back here now to the studio, where we have wireless joysticks to control the cameras that are on PTZ to run them from back here. So now I don't have to get on a walkie-talkie and yell at somebody to move a camera. I can sit there and, hey, turn the camera.
Yeah, you can lean over and remind them. Yeah, that's cool to hear how it's kind of evolved. And like we talked a little bit before we even got on air here today, but like talk a little more about how the program itself has evolved a little bit. Like you have, the upgrades and the technology and the cameras and all that, but the program has evolved too. Like it didn't start out like one day you just showed up and say, oh, we're broadcasting all of the varsity and JV basketball games and some wrestling meets and the football games. So like talk about the evolution of the program itself a little bit too.
So the state of it, when I took over in 2014, the state of Indiana had curriculum for radio TV broadcasting. And Phil at the time, of course, was a full-time tech, but he was allotted some time to help co-teach some of this stuff.
Yep.
And we started looking at this curriculum, and the curriculum was way outdated. Okay, it was talking about tape. Nobody uses tape anymore.
Nope.
Everything's digital, and so forth and so on. So we had to, go through the weeds there and kind of, get some sort of today's curriculum together and build it ourselves, because we had the latest, greatest technology for the radio station as well as our TV program.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just as if you'd find in any commercial stations, we had the latest, greatest stuff. And that's always been an important thing for CTE programs, is to try to replicate exactly what's going on in industry to the best of our ability, because the money is not endless.
Yeah, right,
and so but this was built right.
Yeah.
And so we started out with some smaller numbers, obviously, because it was brand new, and but we did have the working relationship at the time with Wawasee, Fairfield, and West Noble, and so we had students from all 3 schools that were funneled into this, where we're not at now, but this much smaller facility, where an live on-air radio studio like we're sitting on now was also this little itty-bitty classroom with half a dozen computers. Yeah. And so we outgrew that as time went on. But the program a lot of it was students saying to us, I think it would be cool if we could.
Got ya.
And we really relied on the students to kind of guide us and give us some ideas of what they would like to get out of this program.
Yeah.
And we've done that every year since. This podcast has evolved because of students coming and saying, and we had already talked about starting this, but when the students came at the beginning of the year and says, I think it'd be cool, particularly Garrett, who you talked to here recently. I'm like, well, if you guys are game, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? So every year we always had a goal to add something new or, make something, better that we were already doing.
Yeah.
And, that first year we didn't do any live sports broadcasting because, again, we didn't launch the radio station until December 1st of 2014, which was then called Warrior Radio, 93.7 FM The Mix.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, we had to change that to 93.7 FM The Mix because there was a school or two that are like, hey, you got our kids going there. Wouldn't it be more beneficial if we were a little more generic, if you will? And we agreed with them.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and did that. But, man, the sports thing started the next year. We had 2 students, for sure, Rhett Koblenz and Mason Gray, who said, oh, man, since we were little boys, we would mute the TV, have a game on, and would sit there and call the game.
Yep.
And Rhett, is his mom and dad working in the school system. I had already been talking to them about this. And so they were able to be juniors at the time, that second year, and take the program. And our advisory board said, well, you need to think about doing think about this before you go ahead and launch live sports.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be spending a lot of time here. And Doty and I kid each other on, who's here the longest throughout a day. But we're like, you know what? No, we think the community needs it because nobody was covering Wawasee sports at the time.
Yeah.
Bill Dixon did it for many years in CAS. Jason Samuel was a part of that group as well when I worked with there. But nobody was doing it. And so we're like, we got the radio station. We got a TV program. We've got cameras.
Yep.
Let's do this.
Absolutely.
So I don't remember exactly if that very first year we launched live video or if it was that first year only radio.
No, we did both.
Did we do both?
We did both.
Okay. So that's where the whole sports broadcasting thing came from.
Yeah.
Was that second year and those 2 young men. And then we had a couple seniors that took the class because they had open spots. They needed something to do, and they thought, well, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
Ryan Lockhart and Justin, and I can't remember his last name.
I know it. I can see his face.
Yeah, I can. And
we're thinking of you, Justin, if you're listening, tuning in. We remember you.
In my days of being involved with Boy Scouts, he was in our Boy Scout troop. That's terrible. But anyways, they came on board and are like, we'd like to try this.
Yeah.
So immediately, because they told us on the front end, the advisory board, you might some years have kids and some years you might not.
Yeah.
And that's still the case today. We had 4 kids, so now we can do football. We can do and so we decided to spend a little more money because of underwriting dollars that come in through our local community businesses, and buy some remote gear to allow us to do away games for football and basketball. So that was an enhancement because we were only doing home games at first, and they all bought in and did amazing.
That's awesome.
And so It's really been student driven this whole 10 years that I've been involved. Sure, there's been things where like, hey, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
But students, that was the whole point.
Yeah, I think that's the basis of, CTE classes, obviously, and a lot of classes in general at Wawasee. It is very student driven. You're getting input and insight from them. What direction do you want this program to go to specifically for CTE? And that links perfectly with radio, TV, broadcasting, all of that type of stuff, because it's going to be the students like impacting it and going into that. Yes, of course, with the guidance of the educators and the instructors that they have. But yeah, it's really cool to hear that the students have really driven that, and to have students step up to the forefront early on and lead and say, hey, I really want to get involved in this. I want to take it over. It is really, really cool to hear. Now, from the athletic side, it was awesome because, when that started to happen, you don't always get to be able to go to a game. You know,
Exactly.
you have grandma or grandpa that live a state away or something. Well, how can
Or
we
went to Florida in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. How can we come watch a game or hear about it? Well, if you now are being provided a live stream or even a radio broadcast, now you can at least hear, you know, your grandson or granddaughter on an event or a game or whatever's going on. You know, you guys go out or for graduation, as
Yep.
you explained. Like, there's so many opportunities for people to get connected, you know, outside of just going to the event. And I talked way back on the initial podcast about community connection, right? Connecting to our community. That's what we want to make sure our athletics is providing, and connecting with our community and being good stewards of hearing what they want and providing something to them. And what a better way to do that if they can't make it to the game. You can listen on the radio. You can catch a live stream. So what a cool way to kind of come full circle with that and hear from our community, or if it's other radio stations that just can't quite cover it, or our student-driven stuff. You know, it's great to hear a way that we can still provide that for them.
Yeah, you know, when you mentioned the community, I remember that first comment that somebody, after we launched the radio station in particular, but even at the launch, the sports broadcasting side of things, that very first comment from somebody says, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
And then you have students that are amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, they're students. They're not professionals. They're going to learn as they go, and they do grow as time goes on.
Yep.
But I'll never forget that. When these people were coming up to me, and since I've lived in this town my whole life, a few people know who I am. But, you know, and then I'd come back and I would tell the students, listen, here's what's happening. This is real.
Yeah.
This is real. We're talking to this very community here 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And so everything we do, somebody's hearing it, somebody is seeing it.
Yep.
And then at that point, then these businesses are like, well, I want in.
Be part of that. Yeah.
I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, most of them are writing checks because they want to support Wawasee
Yeah.
and our programs. But some of them, including my father, it was a return on his investment. He was able to spend a little money. People didn't know there was some things that we did in our business, heard it, and they come in and said, I heard that on the local high school station.
Exactly.
And I'm interested in this product. And so that's when it became real. Also, when you went down up and down the strip here, a lot of businesses have this very radio station on inside of their business.
Because they could only get one channel, and that was what, the country station, wasn't it?
Well, no, they can get more channels, but a lot of them told me that, you know, you're
like
talking weather right here.
Yeah, yeah.
You've
it's
got
live
the
from right
National
here.
Weather
Yeah.
Service emergency alert system for Syracuse.
Yep.
Everybody else is in Fort Wayne, South Bend, Warsaw, and you're talking about Wawasee
here.
territory. What is going on here?
That's cool.
Other than the Mail Journal and the paper, which
Yeah.
you got to pick it up and read it,
Yep.
we can tune in and watch it, or we can watch the live ball game.
Exactly.
And that has been our whole, you know,
Weather, community events, the whole thing on the radio side, bringing out the community into the whole project.
it's been all about community-oriented stuff.
Yeah,
and that's what we're all about.
Yeah, and to expand on that even too, you know, a couple years ago, COVID hits, right? And from an athletic standpoint, we start to get shut down. Like, there was some time where you couldn't go to events.
Right.
You had to have a very limited selection of people. We were passing out tickets. You know, each athlete only gets 2 tickets to come to the event. You know, we were ahead of the game in that regard because we were provided or had the opportunity to broadcast it live or hear it on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, we were going, or not, I say we, like I was part of it, like I was there, but you guys were doing the work. Like, there were swimming events, there was volleyball, there was all kinds of stuff that you guys were going out and broadcasting because people literally just couldn't come to the events. They weren't allowed to go. So we were so far ahead of the game, and being able to do that, it was a true asset to our community. And saying, you wouldn't know how many times that someone would walk up to me and say, you know what, this is awesome that you guys are providing this. How are we going to be able to do this? Because people can't come watch our games.
That literally put us on the map of
100%.
of broadcasting, because we had other communities that were coming saying, hey, they're doing this, you need to go watch this.
Yep.
And we've had other broadcasters say, hey, go see them. They're going to do a better job than we are.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and you know, in the really heat of the moment of that whole COVID thing, which it's hard to believe that was 5 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
You said a couple of moments ago, wait, you don't realize, Brent, that was 5 years ago. But
We had to
it
do
was
a weekly.
Phil and I it was Phil and I
Yeah.
who had to do that because we couldn't allow students in here on the front end of some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when we were able to at least bring the students in or
the
the other
games.
adults that were
Yeah.
involved too, we were able to do that. But, you know, it wasn't even just the sports. So since Phil doesn't live in town here, but I do, you remember that we all was waiting for President Trump's message of the day. What's
Yeah.
going on, right? Early on in that whole thing.
Yep.
Well, the governor would do as well. And so we are a member of the Indiana Broadcasters Association. So every day they would send me the link of the governor's address specifically about Indiana and what's going on here. And so I would come in to the studio here and actually
Record it.
I would play it live.
Yeah.
Really?
I did it live. That was I remember staff was told nobody in the buildings. Well, I had to get special permission.
Yeah.
Because again, we have a broadcast facility here live. We sent that out, and then when we started doing that, remember when they were handing out all the free meals,
Yes.
and all that stuff around the communities.
Yep.
Well, then that information started coming in, and I had to get on here live. I mean, it was kind of nice because I'm not one to stay at home
Yeah.
and be locked up. Although my wife and I we were able to do some projects,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we were communicating to the public and the community in a lot of different facets, and it was cool to have that ability to do that.
He would record it while it was going out live and then send me the clip, and then I would make it into a video so it would go out
Nice.
on the YouTube channel.
Very
that's,
cool.
That's our obligation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's the whole
absolutely.
point of this.
Yeah, connecting to the community, getting that information out to them is important, whether it's, public service announcements and stuff like that, or stuff like the weather that right here in Syracuse that you can get, or if it's an athletic event that we're tying to. So that's cool. Talk to us a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes. You kind of just alluded to that a little bit, like you're coming in by yourself doing that. You have this title, executive director, right? Like what does that mean from just a general standpoint? Like it's maybe a little peek behind the curtain a little bit, and they don't not a general person's not gonna know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'm going to add some parenthesis to the end of executive director.
yeah.
Chief toilet bowl cleaner, which means we have to do everything.
Everything and anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you do have, particularly with the radio station, when you do have something that's on the air 24/7, 365, we have obligations to the federal government to do this, do that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And yes, there is a computer automated system here, but we have to feed the beast. We have to give it information so that it is accurate. So at the end of the day, there was a time where Phil and I remotely could log in and upload things to automation. So it was a seven day a week job.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, to do that. But that's definitely part of it, right? When the kids aren't here, guess who has to do it?
Of course. Of course.
We have to do that. But, when it comes to when the kids are here, whether it's the radio station or our live sports broadcasting program, which is radio and TV,
Yep.
there's a lot of pre-production that has to be done. First of all, you got to go get the underwriters to hopefully write you checks to allow us to pay our students, because we do pay our students to be involved in this, which means you've got to get ad copy from them, and then the students need to produce that. And then for the specific broadcast, which the boys that you talked about or talked to in the previous episodes here, there's a lot of pre-production that has to be done as intros, video intros.
Yep.
I mean, the list is endless.
So he would record all the audio that would go on the radio and then give me the audio to create the
video
videos for it. Or like back when it was Zach and
Rhett.
Grant.
Yeah.
When they would do it, they created their video intro for basketball. And I think we had Kenny. Kenny Long
and
as
that's
a
just
voice,
it.
so-
A lot of this stuff is produced by students.
Yeah.
But then there's situations where they're involved in other projects that have to be done for the class or for the state competition.
then we have
and then
to-
so sometimes we would have
falls
to
back
take
on
over
us.
and do that. But a lot of this stuff was produced by students. And
Yep.
it takes days to do that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because the kids are only here for a couple hours.
Yeah. It's
in
only a
the block.
couple, 2 classes.
Yep.
And
Whereas in the commercial world, they're there all day.
Yep. It's a full work day.
It's for full work day to get that stuff done.
Yeah.
And so, it's difficult. And a lot of times we would have to step in and finish things or get things done
Right.
because we definitely wanted to put a superior project out there. But at the end of the day, we oversee everything
Yep.
and make sure that it's correct before it goes out.
Of course.
And we make mistakes. We're human.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I kid Phil because we're a good duo here.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to spell. I know how to spell. So I help him with that. I can't remember a darn thing.
And I can remember a lot
He
of stuff.
remembers everything. So I guess I was like
That's
a
good
married
balance.
couple
Yeah.
or something like that. So
That's funny.
The
from my
kids
perspective,
used to always say, "Hey, mom and dad are fighting again."
but from my perspective, we oversee everything and guide them, the
Right.
students, on what needs to be done and or do it because
Right.
we have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Very cool. So talk to us about the students specifically. Like, what are some of those roles that are available to them that they could come in and do? You just mentioned like you guys are kind of overseeing it and stepping in when you have to, but ideally it's run by the students. The students are coming in and doing their part to produce it, to prepare it, to be on air, to do all that. Like, so what are some of those roles that would be available to those kids to do?
So I'm going to let Phil go first and have
Yeah.
him talk about the TV side
Yeah.
of things,
Okay,
and I'll
yeah.
talk about the radio side.
So on the TV side, we have camera operators. So there could be one during football because we only have the one camera. But
Yeah.
like I said, we would have liked to expand that to maybe a sideline reporter or an end zone camera,
Yeah.
where we've got a camera at the end zone and you can watch it from either the end zone itself or from the side of the end zone, so
Yeah.
you can kind of see that. Couple extra cameras and things that'd be future type stuff. But
Yeah.
right now we only have the one camera on the press box, and that can be run from back here in the studio.
Yeah.
We can have a person on the actual console running that camera, the view, and the instant replay. And then you have all of the tiles that need to go up and be created along with the audio for it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times there's not a whole lot of audio that needs to be mixed for the football game. So that one person running the console can also run the audio. During this past year for the girls' game, you almost needed an extra person for the audio along with the control board to be able to get everything to function right. Because you'd have to, because since we weren't doing the radio for those games, it was all TV side. You had to bounce back and forth between recording through the TriCaster itself and muting the actual announcers. So you'd have to lean over here, press this, so you get the video up, or actually a picture, and then hit the audio to start running. And you have to do back and forth. And then you also had, we have 3 cameras. One's basically stationary, and the other 2, one for when people sub in and out, and then the actual game camera. So you'd have to have 2 run there. So during that those are the main functions that we do there.
Main roles for that,
Yeah, and then like for both of us, you have your on-air talent.
Yep.
And we usually hope to have students do that.
Yeah.
When we are down, like you said, it's an up and down thing.
Yeah.
You try to find adults that'll
To do
step
that,
in for it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's neat to hear that there's different roles that you can obviously have. Like you don't have to always be on camera. You don't always have to be in front of the mic. Like you could be doing something kind of behind the scenes and making that production work too. So it's not just it's the talent that's in front of it that's calling the game. Well, I don't know anything about basketball or football. Well, there's still a role that you could play to help out with that. So.
Well, just piggyback off of that real quick. A lot of our kids that run the cameras don't know anything about the sport. And I'm having, why do we do this? I'm like, okay, you're going to run the camera here to here. You need to have the ball somewhere in this area while it's going this direction, and on this side while it's going this direction.
Yeah.
So
really anybody could step in and do it if they really wanted to and were interested in doing it and getting connected with the like that's I know one thing Mr. Walmer talks about a lot, and we obviously do too on the athletics side, like getting connected to something outside of just coming to school and going to class. Like there's something for everybody. And if you're not willing to try it, maybe you should step in to try something that might be a little out of your comfort zone and get out there and try it for one time. You might enjoy it, and if not, then at least you gave it a try and you can move on to that. It's what it's how you build getting into your real life and a job and all of that, whether you go to college or profession. Like, you're going to try those things. I think Reese Johnson mentioned it the other day. He's like, I just want to figure out what I really enjoy and want to get into before I make my final decision. And high school is a great opportunity to be able to do that. So, but yeah, on the radio side too, how about you?
Well, you also interviewed Aiden Cabine. I'll use him as an example.
Yeah.
Aiden he's a junior this year, and so he's been with me ever since his freshman year. And he started on the camera.
Yeah.
He got to then graduate up to the console switcher on the video side of things. And then he came in here to the radio side because this job is pretty much a one-person job where this audio console right here is what needs to be operated. We're firing the commercials. We're turning the on-air talent on and off. But actually, sometimes this job on the radio side is the most important job between the radio and TV broadcast because everything comes audio-wise from the radio station. We're the ones who kicks everything off. And we have walkie-talkies between the radio studio and the TV control room. Yep. And if we're not on the same page, there's going to be a mismatch somewhere.
Yeah.
And so students, I sit here and I do it. And then when we get through the crazy on the front end of it, I let them learn that way. Once they get comfortable there, then the next time I let them do the crazy. And then I hover over them because I know they're going to make mistakes, right? Yeah. But I've got their back.
Yep.
And so, they're in constant communication, as well as communicating with the on-air talent. Any score updates, or we've got 3 more spots to do in this break, or legal IDs coming up, or something along those ways. They have to be totally focused at the whole time. We don't allow them to be on their cell phones because you'll miss it. And we still make mistakes, I mean, at the end of the day. But
only human.
Yeah, exactly. So there's plenty of opportunity for anybody. And we've had a lot of students over the years who were not in the program, and I advertise it as such. Yeah. You don't have to be in the program. But you can come and play with us and learn how live works, because you can't fix live.
Yeah. No.
You can go in the studio and record all you want, edit, and do it. There's no doing any of that.
Yep.
But, at the end of the day, too, we tell our on-air talent a lot of times all they want to ever do is on-air talent. Call the games.
Yeah.
And we have to tell them, listen, if you're thinking about going into the next level of education to learn how to do this and eventually be a professional sports broadcaster, you need to know
everything.
Yeah. All the behind-the-scenes stuff, all of that. You need to put your hands on it. You need to know that job, because you're going to be able to sell yourself because you won't get that professional gig right off the bat, big contract.
You might have to work your way up to it, and getting your foot in the door to run something may lead to you being the person who is on the air.
Yeah,
at some point.
That honestly segues into what I was going to ask next, because you talked about those opportunities that we're giving kids right now to come into the studio or broadcast a game or do some behind the scenes pre-production or whatever. So what would kids be interested in going into as that next step, like college wise? What would they be led to as a next step, I guess, from this program, or if they're interested in this program, maybe just stepping into it, what would that future path maybe look like for them?
So from the class overall, which includes sports broadcasting, sports broadcasting is kind of like the extracurricular of the class. We can't force students to do all that stuff. They have to want to do it. But we have had many students go into further education, college level, in sports broadcasting specifically, film production, audio production, television production, so forth and so on, who are now working in industry. Yeah. So there is plenty of opportunities for them to do that. And then who knows, we could have students we've not been in communication with who are doing podcasts now.
Exactly.
Who are YouTubers or social media people. I mean, they learn how to edit video, how to edit audio, how to shoot video, how to record audio.
Right.
All of the fundamentals that you need to learn, and then they can go there or go on to further education.
Yeah. Well, and even so, as you mentioned that, maybe not even further education. Like you could potentially come from this class and get a job outside of or in I want to say real life. I know it's real life, but like into their profession in, whether it's behind the scenes, they're not going to go be on-air talent or whatever. But like you said, whether it's communications or getting a job, like we mentioned Ryan Lockhart earlier, right?
Yep.
I know he's working for a radio station
Yes.
right now. Whether he went on to further education first and then advance from there, but like you could potentially step into there and get an internship or something that they could use for their future job and profession as they step away from a high school class, a lot like our other CTE programs, whether it's welding or marine mechanics and those type of things. Like you go into the profession because you're learning from the professionals who have experienced that in the real world, in the professional life. So that's a cool concept or a cool opportunity for our kids to step into, even if they don't choose higher education beyond high school.
Isaac Winters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Currently, he worked at Pollywood in his capstone experience the last semester,
Yep.
and worked in their marketing department.
Yeah.
And was able to help them shoot videos for internally for their employees, but to get the messages out properly and whatever.
Yeah.
He was able to use his skills to do that. Currently, he's working with the Syracuse Wawasee Chamber of Commerce. And so now he's working with them, which is going to be working with community members and whatever. And he's gotten a few side hustle jobs out of this gig too. Seriously. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
He's good at it. And so, the doors are open wide. I had one kid a few years ago. I have a mobile DJ business, been doing that for over 30 years, and I want to do that. Can you teach me how to do that?
That's cool.
And I got permission with his parents, and I let him come help me DJ a wedding one time. My wife was ecstatic because she didn't have to be the roadie that night. But helped me set up all the gear, and we went through it. It wasn't about being on the mic, just seeing what I have to do on that side of things.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he's doing it now or not, but he had a passion for that.
Yeah.
And so it's so cool working with kids, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think every educator gets that feeling. Like you get into the profession for that reason, for the kids, right? And a lot of them are being self-taught. Like you mentioned the YouTubers or the podcasters. Like it doesn't take a lot, but you have to have the knowledge behind it to be able to produce it like well.
Yeah.
So having this class and having the opportunities that Wawasee's providing for them is a significant step forward for them, so they can get into things that they're interested in like that. We have some extremely talented kid, whether it's video editing or broadcasting, like you mentioned, Isaac Winters. There's so many other ones that do those type of things, or if it's photography or something like that, videography. Like just giving them the opportunity to have this class and maybe elevate from that class then too is such a huge stepping stone for our kids to be able to have.
I'll let Phil reference this. We're involved with a program called the Indiana Association of School Broadcasters.
Yeah.
There are 41 high schools in the state of Indiana that have a program similar to this.
Yeah.
Now, not all of them have an actual radio station, okay? But they teach some of this stuff.
Some of the video and some of that.
Yeah. And Phil is one of their board members and has been for several years. And we just recently had come back from Butler University with our students submitting a bunch of audio-video projects, so I'll let you continue.
And we had, I believe it was 3 first place, 3 second place, and 1 third.
3, yeah.
And then several honorable mentions.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So, we came back. We ended up being 3rd or 2nd overall in the sports broadcast. Sports division. So, this past year, we, as a board, decided to spread out the different awards. It used to be just who was the TV of the year and who was radio of the year. Now we broke it down into 5 categories, and we were second runner-up in the sports broadcast.
That's awesome.
And every year we've come back with hardware. I mean, these kids, they spend several months.
This has been our best year this year.
Yeah, they spend several months working on these projects, and by the end of it, they are so frustrated because here's Van Loo, and sometimes
they
Phil
hate us.
comes in. They hate us because, you know what? If you do this is going to take this to a whole new level. And they're like, man, I've just spent so much time on this.
Yeah.
And a perfect example was Addie, one of my Fairfield students. She did a radio sports talk show. And she took this piece of equipment we're talking into right now, and she just could not get her girlfriends to do this right. And I guided her on the front end. You're going to run into that. When you're relying on others, you're at the mercy of that. So be prepared for that. Well, she come back and she tried. And I finally gave her the bad news. Kid, you got to record something else.
Oh, no.
She was in tears.
Yeah.
I mean, she worked so hard on that. I said, this is also a graded project too.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know what? I can do this. And so she come up with a new idea. And darn if she didn't get first place.
That's awesome.
And, she come up to me afterwards and she said, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in tears and I was frustrated, but you pushed me because you saw something in me that you knew that I could do this. I said, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
And that's what every educator wants, right? Not the first place trophy.
Yeah.
Like that's the icing on the cake, right? It's for them to experience something that is going to make them a better person, right? Like when they get out in their community, she's going to remember that like it was really, really hard and I had to start all over. Maybe she's going to experience that again in her life, or somebody else is going to experience that in their life. And remember, like I can fall back on this. Like it was really difficult, but I made it through and it was better because of it. Like, and that's what education is about. It's not just the knowledge that they're gaining. It's, meeting them emotionally, socially, physically, mentally, like all of those pieces is what us educators are tasked with in developing and helping these students and student athletes move forward so they're ready when they step out of Wawasee High School. So what a cool story for her to experience, and then for her to have success and be awarded for that is even icing on the cake, like I said.
I like the one where did Isaac get third with his video?
Third with his short film, yeah.
Yeah, he modified it like 4 times after he submitted it. And I said, when he got the award afterwards, I told him, I go, now just think, if you would have had this done, what he modified, and was able to submit that at that time, he might have won.
That's
Here's the one thing that students don't realize when they take this class. Deadlines are everything in this business. And, as gen ed's teachers, they have deadlines or when things are due.
Yeah.
But they have a little more flexibility. When you're talking about a live sports broadcast or a live radio show or a state competition where they dictate what the deadline is, they struggle with that because they've not necessarily their whole life been held to that level of got to meet the deadlines.
They think this is the deadline. Oh, I've got a couple more days. No, this is the deadline.
Yeah. What a great real world experience too for that. Like that's going to happen in their lives and their jobs. Like there's whatever profession it is, there's going to be a deadline, or you're not going to get that job next time or whatever it is. So what a cool opportunity to show and share with them and get them that experience that they're going to benefit as they move on. So talk to us about how kids get involved. Like how do they come about being interested in this, or if they are interested in this, they hear this podcast, man, I want to do some podcasting. Let's get in that. Or I want to get in the broadcast or radio, TV, or if it's video or doing short films or whatever it is in that state competition and stuff. So talk about how they would get involved and be part of that.
Well, basically, they need to talk to their guidance counselors.
Yeah.
And but really and truthfully, the guidance counselors have a ton of students that they have to communicate with, right? And so, I've had many conversations over the years with students who have sent me an email and said, hey, could you, because these kids in middle school, they come take a tour of all our CTE programs. But by the time they get to high school, a lot of these programs, you can't be in it until you're a junior or senior.
Right.
And so they only get like 5-10 minutes at the most to come through. And it's a whole big group. They don't really, get to talk to us. So I've had students email me, can I come down during warrior time? And you can tell me how this all works. And so reach out, and I'd be happy to give you a tour and tell you how all of this works. I mean, if you go to our YouTube channel, CPG-TV, we have a lot of content on there, obviously, that you can see what other students are doing. Yep. There's a lot of content that our students have produced that we can't put out there because of copyright rules and so forth and so on. So I wish we could.
Yes.
It would definitely help with promotions.
Yes,
but we don't want to be slapped with fines or anything like that. But, but obviously talking then to your guidance counselors and,
We've
this
also,
is a class of creativity, okay, and storytelling. That's what this class is all about. And I have a student who just did an animation project too, which she got second place. Second place. And that's the first one we've ever done animation. Cool. She took the class not knowing that we had animation software, but she's an artist. She loves to doodle.
Yeah.
And when I started talking to him and I said, we've got an animation, if there's any artists, she's like, really? So, you don't have to be the kid that wants to be a radio DJ.
Yeah.
Or the kid who wants to be a sports broadcaster. You can just be the artist, or you could be the person that's really good writing skills and telling stories, and come down here and create with top-notch equipment and software.
That's awesome.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, it's available for every kid that has an interest and wants to do that. And that's what our education system is about, like getting them connected with that.
Yeah.
So
the other thing that we've done is we've put out promotional videos for the program and been able to run those on the monitors.
Pathways CTE.com.
Well, awesome. Well, this has been really cool. It's obviously enlightening and some great information that I've learned, obviously. Is there anything else that you guys want to share about the program, this podcast, just anything in general that has maybe we haven't discussed up until this point, or anything that we want to share with our community and share with our kids?
I'll tell you, in my cards was never to be a teacher. I have a whole family of teachers.
Yeah.
And I never got the bug and said, summer's off? That sounds cool. Yeah. Right? Spring break, Christmas break, whatever else.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. And then when my uncle, asked to be on that advisory board, and then it got to ask if you're interested in this, and then I ended up getting the job. This is the first time in my life these last 10 years where I have gotten up every morning looking forward to going to work.
That's awesome.
So much so that I don't use my personal days. If I got a cough, I still come to work. Yeah. Now, I get sick sometimes and I have to use that stuff, or I have to do some of that stuff. But I just love working with these kids.
Yeah.
That was the whole point, is the kids in the community.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love teaching them the value of community. And we do that through this portal of radio broadcasting, sports broadcasting, creativity, and it's been so fun.
Yeah, you hit it right on that. If you're doing it for kids, you can't ever go wrong. Like if you have them first in mind and you're doing it for their best interest, you can never go wrong. And I think that's what every educator has. And you don't even have to be an educator to do that. But naturally, that kind of is where you ended up and landed. So yeah, I think that's so cool to hear, and kind of that the path and the way that this program has evolved and developed over time. It's so cool to hear the experiences that our kids are getting and having the opportunity to have by being in the class or having the extracurricular with the radio broadcast or video or live stream event. So what a cool opportunity that we have. We're so fortunate to have it, to be able to provide our events, and whether it's football or wrestling or basketball, and hopefully expands. Like, as you said, we try and add something each year. So hopefully that continues to happen moving forward.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, you made my students go out with the podcast.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that again, or should we throw you under the bus?
No. That was a little radio trick on my part. Like, I didn't actually know what to say, so I was like, "Hey, why don't you guys just send us out?" So I still don't know what to say. I haven't wrote it down yet. So
I got an idea. Why don't you take my class and I'll teach you how to do that?
I think I might have. I don't know if I have any eligibility left, quote unquote. But no. Yeah, I'll have you guys send us out, and hopefully this has been awesome. It's been enlightening for me. Like, I work with you guys every single day, and we're always in conversation, but I've learned things today that I didn't know before, obviously. So again, what a cool way to share that with our community who might not know that stuff either. So thank you guys for taking the time to sit down. And I don't think I'm going to hijack the studio anymore, but you just never know. I might just show up and be like, "Hey guys, can I get on the mic again? I want to interview this person or talk to this, or let's continue the podcast." So.
Like the rest of us, you do have a face for radio.
Yeah. So. That is very true. Just don't tell my mom. She would probably disagree with you, but that's okay.
Well, of course, that's what moms are supposed to do.
I'll have you guys send us out if you don't mind.
Well, I'd like to say thank you, Brent, for all that you do with the athletic department, and you do, and Ann and Carp, and all your people underneath coaches. There's
the things you allow us to do.
Well, not only what we get to do, and you help with our students as well, and whatever, but you spend a lot of hours here too, man. and that's greatly appreciated, because at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing, just not in the classroom per se,
Right.
but you literally are touching kids' lives as well.
Yeah.
With all that your department does, and so we thank you, and I thank Phil, because there's so much to do with this program that, especially with sports broadcasting, I've been involved wholeheartedly with the class by myself for most of it, although there was a few years where he was part-time teaching with me, but he hasn't been for the last few years. And the sports thing, there's no way in heck that just me and students could have kept this going. Phil had to be a part of this. There was no doubt about it to make this work. So I thank him for helping out with that. And you have anything, last thing you want to say?
Just thank you to both of you for everything. Yes.
Okay. Great. I got to thank you too.
You get a thank you for everything you guys have done for the sports broadcasting, the class, allowing students to be able to broadcast, and expanding their minds.
Yeah.
So it's been real fun.
Yeah, very good. Well, I appreciate that too, and the thank you is extremely appreciated and not necessarily needed. Like, I think we're all doing it for the right reasons, but I want to say thank you to you guys too for being so awesome to work with, providing the opportunity for the kids, highlighting our athletes. We have great coaches, great kids, great community, and we want to celebrate them when we have that. So you guys have done a tremendous job at doing that. Can't thank you guys enough, and look forward to you guys continuing to do that, because we got plenty of more events that go on and things that happen. We got graduation coming up and all those good things. So yeah, thank you guys for everything that you have done too. That's awesome.
Oh, I do want to do one plug. Last 2 years we've been double streaming to our YouTube channel and the IHSAA Champions Network.
Nice. So you can catch it at either spot.
Yeah.
Whatever. Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier, and I neglected to. When we started broadcasting the radio and TV live streams and all that for our athletic events, there were so many other schools that were trying to profit from that.
Yes.
Like they were selling like a ticket essentially to watch the game. We have never once charged a dime for anyone to watch any one of our events. I wish I would have said that earlier. I should have mentioned in the moment, but we have been steadfast in talking about it. I know we had discussions about that throughout, especially when COVID was going on. You know, you're losing revenue from people not coming into games and stuff. I said, no, we want to give this to our community for free, provide this service to them. It's all based on the kids, highlighting them, whether they're on the mic or they're playing. Like, just a testament to kind of what you guys have done. Have always done that for free and put that on at no cost.
The first year that we did it, we were with NFHS. We had to charge. That was if it was going through them.
Yeah.
And that was our only platform at the time. And then we got the YouTube channel to where we could say, hey, we don't need that. We want to make sure it's free.
Yeah.
And we've been free ever since.
Well, and we've had a lot of questions over the years. Okay, so you provide video of your home events, but no video for your away events.
Yeah.
And what we have to explain to them is two things. Number one, you have to have a really solid internet connection to not only do audio, but especially video, and to do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, to go out and have this high quality video product at home and then to have this really cruddy video product away. No, but really and truthfully, nowadays, a lot of schools are broadcasting their events on their own video platform, and they won't let you bring video in their only radio.
Correct. That's very true.
And so to have the radio station, you know, that's why we've been able to do all the away games on radio, whereas we wouldn't have been able to do it had we not done that. You know, so that's been really cool to have that.
Yeah, I sorry, we kind of were wrapping it up, and I threw that in there, and that's on me. I should have been a better host today. I should have had that ready. I should have had my note to point that. But no, again, thank you guys for taking the time, and we'll let you guys send it out.
All right. Well, thank you, Brent. And this has been Warriors Beyond the Scoreboard on YouTube at CPG-TV.